Welcome to the Save Childhood podcast with Jennifer McCarville. Because childhood has changed, but children have not.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Save Childhood podcast.
I'm Jennifer McCarville.
And I'm Nicole Dugan, and today we are talking about play. And understand play is one of our 14 tenets at savechildhood.org.
Yes, it is.
And so there are different types of play, but today specifically we're going to be talking about pretend play.
Mm-hmm. Yes, pretend play, imaginative play, dramatic play, all of those, they're all the same thing, right?
Right.
So we know that it's the cliche, play is the work of childhood, but what does that mean and how do we go deeper into that and really understand its value? I think it gets brushed aside.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, play is the work of childhood. And yet when we know details about the different styles of play, like you said, there are many different kinds of play, and this pretend play is one. And when we know, then we do better.
Right.
Yeah, we are able to make sure that kids get that. So it's going to be fun to talk about the true value of pretend play. And of course, always what we're learning in every episode, hopefully, is that these things that we value that are part of our tenets of saving childhood, that nurture children in the ways that they need to be so they can truly thrive. All of these things, we are learning that the children are learning.
Yeah. And so why is pretend play specifically, so valuable?
I would say really pretend play helps children work through things. There's a lot of benefit to their emotional growth in pretend play. That's how they make sense of the world. It's how they practice what they see and what they experience. And I think that's one of the reasons that pretend play is so incredibly valuable. Of course, it also has the great ability to nurture creativity and social competencies. But I believe that the thing that sets pretend play apart is that it's the making sense of the world piece.
Yeah.
There are many other benefits, which, we'll talk about some, but one of the big things is symbolic thinking. They use things to be something that they maybe weren't intended for or in a creative way. And when they do something like that and they use things to be symbols for something else, that actually is a foundation for writing, where you're able to understand the letter B actually is a symbol for a sound. So that symbolic play is really, really important, as they evolve, as they develop that. And then they build on that through symbols can represent other things,
And this would be a good time to plug our episode about loose parts, because loose parts are open-ended and often have a role in pretend play. So if you haven't watched that one yet or heard that one yet, go check it out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's important. Loose parts, definitely.
Yeah. And talk to us about language and how that develops through pretend play.
Well, the language skills they're going to use, they're going to start practicing with words that they might not use to communicate with us as adults or to describe things necessarily. They're really going to play with a lot of language, practice it over and over and over, and that's so important. One of the truths about developing language is that when children learn a new word, they use it over and over and over. And I can't remember, at one point I used to know that research specifically, but it was something like when they hear a new word, in the next 3 days, they'll use it. I can't remember.
It's a lot of times.
And it was very specific too. It was like 87 times in the next 72 hours. And so they can practice that language over and over and over through this pretend play. And so the language skills, and then with one another as they're bringing children into their play, or they're, an adult maybe is joining their play, which I know we're going to talk about, but we would definitely give them that freedom to just talk. And pretend play does that. So.
Right. And it builds the brain.
Absolutely. These are brain building things that, build the brain strong and well. And they create lasting neuropathways. And again, for neuropathways to really be strong, they have to repeat experiences and activities. So through pretend play, they're figuring out things and they're practicing being an adult. They're practicing being a doctor. They're practicing being at the grocery store. All of those things, they're building those stronger neuropathways because this is genuine. This is what they're made to do. And when we meet them in their development, that learning sticks. So this is definitely learning that sticks.
Yeah. Now that we know how important play is, and as we're learning more and more together, it really bothers me when people say they're just playing.
It's a really, really awful thing, right? When you know it, you become like, they are not just playing. They are playing. And that's
important work.
Important work. And, so we tend to fill their time with things we think they need to be doing instead of allowing them to do what they need to be doing.
Which is playing.
That is playing. And, for some reason, unless we're giving them something to do that's our assignment for them, we're losing the value in what they are doing, which is what they really need to grow as whole human beings.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy, really.
And so our hope is that from this discussion today, you are reminded of the importance of it, the value of it, why time and space needs to be given for it.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're developing cooperation, empathy, emotional intelligence falls under that, conflict resolution, how to solve problems with other people when you're trying to make this play work. It's really just deep and rich and valuable.
Yeah. Children can express things in pretend play that they might not have the language or skills for in a different way, but they're processing, right?
Right. And they don't always, even though it is a rich way to develop language skills, they don't always need to be using verbal language, and they're still developing understandings of things as they're playing and interacting. So if they don't have the language per se, they can make up their own words for it or not use words at all sometimes.
Yeah.
And still be able to learn through that experience and processing those things.
And so what's getting in the way of just open-ended pretend play? If we know how important it is, let's talk about the things that are getting in the way of it for children.
Okay, well, I think time. Children don't have time like they need. We're scheduling them constantly, feeling like we need to entertain them if they're not scheduled. Instead of nurturing in them the ability to play on their own, we're filling all of their time with direction and activities and now do this and now do that. And if they don't have that, it's called a lot of things, white space to think, freedom and creativity to do nothing, then that's, I think, one of the biggest barriers is the time and space for play to get out of their way and to see our constant guidance of them in those moments to be really detrimental almost. And then you can feel really good about giving them that time and space. Of course, overscheduling, not having the time, the freedom to do that, screens, always going to be a problem, always going to be a problem. And children should be playing and have time for playing all the way through early childhood and definitely beyond. But, where are children spending their days?
Right, school.
And in the school year, right? They're spending their days in school. And if they're not in school in the summer, they're often in enrichment camps and they're going to learn how to do this and learn how to do that. Not that those things can't be fun and valuable and exciting, but are they replacing the freedom and the time to play? Because that's what we're allowing to happen. And in school, forget about it. It's full of assignments. We can't actually waste time having the children play. And if we think it's a waste of time for children to play, that is tragic. I mean, the fact that in our schools, people do not see the deep value and necessity for children to play, to be fully developed human beings, to build self-confidence, to emotionally regulate, to build creativity and the ability to solve problems. Really, our entire educational system is completely antiquated. We need children who can solve problems. If you want to create and nurture people who can solve problems, they have to play. Right. That's a fact, and it's strong, and it's important, and there's nothing you can replace it with. There's nothing. So, people are feeling human, emotional beings. And so we have children spending, long days, many, many, many hours in school, and yet zero time for play. Oh, they might get 15 minutes at recess.
Yeah, and when we're saying play at school, we're not saying games or
control,
or
we're go play with that.
Open-ended opportunities for play that is led by the children, and specifically pretend play with what we're talking about today. But recess.
Well, number one, many schools don't even have recess. They've taken recess away from the youngest children, kindergarten. Now, those that do often will have 15 minutes of recess, and it's oftentimes the first thing a teacher removes from a child as a consequence for something that has happened that they have deemed negative. As I understand that there are negative behaviors and things that have consequences, but recess should never, ever, ever be one of them. But children need about 25 minutes to become deeply involved in an activity in order to begin building new neuro bridges. And so we have 15 minutes of recess. That includes travel time. That's going to, coming back from, and we take 25 minutes to get engaged in an activity before our brain's really ready to start learning new things and build on what we're doing. Children never have that time in these modern day schools. Mm-hmm. And so it's counterproductive almost. Now, do they need 10 minutes to run off steam and to get some energy in the blood flowing? Absolutely. Do that. But that's not the kind of play that nurtures these incredible intellectual and emotional intellectual skills and emotional competencies that we need to be fully human. And we have all of this, here I go. It's such a huge concern, mental health care crisis, anxiety, all of these things. Now, of course, those things are real things. There are people who definitely need supports for those things and need to, be poured into. I'm not negating that fact, but I do believe that what we are doing to children in the modern day school system and in other places, but there's no place children spend more time, is creating this brokenness in children. And we have to do the right things for them when they're young, and this is a huge one. Right. So play is not a waste of their time. There's nothing that they need to be learning in place of it, in conjunction with it. And I don't mean like, oh, but this is playful learning, we're going to learn how to identify letters because we're playing this game. That is not play.
Right.
That is a controlled, playful lesson, possibly. Nothing wrong with that if that's where the child is and that's what they enjoy doing. And, if they're pushing back, they're not ready. So we need to pull back. If they push back, we need to pull back. And so it's important to recognize that nothing is going to replace the important, valuable lessons of this to create these full human beings that can be functionally emotional, intelligent, etc.
Yeah. So play is something that we need to protect.
We got to protect play, and we have to advocate, and we have to go back and realize what we've done. And I find it really fascinating that it doesn't seem to matter where you are in our country, what we're doing to children in these institutional schools that are, so misaligned with development. What we're doing to them is so negative, and now everyone wants to do it to them younger. You know, we're saying, oh, we don't have time for play. We don't have time for the things they need. That's like saying we don't have time for sunshine. We don't have time for exercise. We don't have time for, you know, giving them a good meal. We don't have time for sleep. All of these things are basic human needs, and play is a basic human need and a beautiful vehicle for learning. It's win-win-win. I mean, so great, but yet it's not working. We're breaking children in these environments, and now we want to do it to them younger and younger and younger. And that isn't about children. None of that is about children. So we've got to understand the value of play. We've got to be able to say, I want you to make time for pretend play in the environment. And I think parents are doing a wonderful thing in that they're pulling their children out of a lot of modern day schools. And I just want to say, this is not about teachers. You know, a lot, we're afraid to speak out against what's happening to children because teachers are great people and they mean well and they're working hard. Absolutely. I have yet to meet a teacher who doesn't appreciate the work we are doing because they are stuck. And I meet many teachers year after year after year who are leaving because they know it's wrong and they're finally at a time and place where they can, you know. And yes, there are many who know it's wrong and they're staying, because heavens knows that is a gift and a blessing to the children. But they still have their hands tied. So for us to stand up boldly and consistently and say, find another way, make another way, never compromise the development, which is, especially through early childhood, 3rd grade at least, play. And then beyond.
Right.
And they could actually play inside. Mind-blowing, right? Like, it's not just about that 10-minute recess they get. It's about creating pockets of play inside and outside. Yeah. Speaking up, and we got to just keep speaking up.
Right. Agreed. What about a child who doesn't participate in pretend play? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that we tend to think of pretend play as being some dramatic play, a big scene that's coordinated, and that's part of it, and it's everything that branches off of that. And so yes, like I was saying, they're working through things, they're figuring out how to be adults, how to function in the world, how things happen and work. But you do have some children who are more onlookers or who might be a little more introverted, all of which is okay. It's okay for children to be who they are and how they're made. But that doesn't mean they don't participate in pretend play. So I think you're looking for other things that are actually pretend play. They line up their stuffed animals and they play school. They're the teacher. Or, you know, little things here and there. You could actually model pretend play for them, because if you do have children who never participate in pretend play, that is a flag. That is a flag, and you should talk to your pediatrician about that. You should talk to, a developmental, pediatrician about that. Not just a regular pediatrician, but pediatricians who focus on development. But I think before you do that, knowing what is pretend play. You see it really peak, it starts around 2 years old, and you see it peak kind of around 6. And so for sure, on either, beyond into 3rd grade, for sure they need that pretend play, and you'll see that happening. But it's not all dress up and extensive make-believe. You just want to be, reassured that there are many other ways to look for that. And it might be privately playing or quietly playing. They might be tinkering with loose parts quietly at a table. You might hear them, talking, singing a song, things like that as they move about the environment and do things. But it doesn't have to be that they're on the big, flamboyant end of play where it's all dramatic and, and the child who has to be a mermaid all day long, all the time, and you're going to, call them their mermaid name. You might not have that child. That doesn't mean they don't do pretend play.
Right.
So they might be whispering to a toy, or you can just hear them if you're, just aware as they're in the room. And usually, not always, but a lot of times that concern is going to come with an only child, because when you have multiple children, you do hear them play with each other. That does not mean when you have multiple children, you won't have one who's a little more introverted and a little, a little more thoughtful, intentional. And that's okay.
Introspective.
Introspective, absolutely, all those things. So it's just making sure that they feel emotionally safe to be able to engage in play that's not controlled. And that can look like a lot of different things.
Right.
So.
Right. So when we understand play and make time for it and advocate for it, we are trusting the process of development because we know they need it, and that's one of our tenets as well. And it's our job to really preserve childhood and make time for this.
It really is. And like you said in the beginning too, like just play is the worst thing that we can do. We need to be learning about the richness and the value of play because it is their work. And it doesn't happen in a little space if you have time. You know, you need to make time for it in your classrooms, in your home environments, and realize that every time you are controlling what the children are doing, you are robbing them of what they need to be doing with free play and pretend play. Now, that doesn't mean you should never, but you should never like lead them through something or, play with them. And that's an important thing in pretend play. And I've said this a lot when I'm working with teachers and parents is that you can join into their play if they ask you to, but you take a back seat. Number one, you don't offer advice. You don't change their play. You don't give them a suggestion for something that would work better. They're fine. They don't need that. They just need you to be present and take a role that they give you. Oh, sure, I would love to join your tea party. Where should I sit? Tell me what I should do. And they will. But be sure you are not the one pouring the tea. You can go to the tea party, but don't host. So make sure that you're following their lead. And your ways are not better. I hate to tell you, they're not better. So they're just different. And they're just informed with life experiences that your children deserve to have. So don't rob them of that, and feel good about it. Feel really good about those spaces you create and those things you say no to. It's another one of our tenets.
Yeah.
Say no. Say no to too much scheduled time. Say no to I've got to do that Pinterest activity. Say no because unless they have plenty of time for play, then say yes to some of that.
All right. So that wraps it up for today. Anything else any final words about what we should be doing as parents and educators to help?
No, I just think that we cannot say often enough that if you follow that gut, you have it you have it in you, it's in your soul to give them what it is they really need. You know what that is, trust it. Don't worry about, well, what if they don't learn this by this? And what if they don't? They will be confident and competent learners because these are the things that give them the foundation they need to build all of those other skills. And playing looks different. Like playing for us as we get older looks like, building something if you're a woodworker, or painting if you do that, or trying a new recipe if you enjoy cooking. That's playing. And we all desire that. I think, often what we're hearing more and more is there's not enough time. I don't have enough time to pursue the things that I'm interested in or that I feel, pulling on me to try. And that can look very different. But when you're spending a lot of time, if you're a researcher and you enjoy that, or if you enjoy reading and you're spending a lot of time, reading novels, or you enjoy, working in the yard, gardening, woodworking, any of those things, that just because yours is focused on something and developing a specific skill, that doesn't make the way they play any less valuable. They are developing a lot of skills. And just as we long for that time, we need to create it and protect it and advocate for it. So I think that's one of the most important things and that's what we are working so hard to do every day.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Well, thanks for joining us today, and share, like, comment, spread the word. New episodes drop every Tuesday morning on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube as well. So also head over to savechildhood.org.
Yeah. And we have our 14 tenants there. And you can read more about our Save Childhood Conference that will be coming up this fall in November this year. And it's a great time of just, learning and refreshment. And I think it's good for your soul. You get to be in the classrooms here and talk to other educators who are fighting the good fight. And we've had parents attend the conference. So check that all out on savechildhood.org.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more and join the movement, go to savechildhood.org.